Namaskaram. Oh, the black dragon, look at him, huh? Vusi Thembekwayo. Am I getting your second name right?
You got it perfectly right. Thank you.
Wonderful seeing you.
I'm so humbled to finally meet you and to connect with you. I've been a huge fan, a follower of your work, reader of the book for a very, very long time. So This is a big moment for me. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Well, see, it's wonderful to see that you are making a difference in the economic condition of Africa more than your business ventures, the inspiration you are giving to the youth to take to entrepreneurship. I think it's most vital because the African tribes, right from thousands of years, they are not tribes of systemic excellence, but more of their own enterprise. Well, maybe the past enterprise cannot be compared to today's form of enterprise, but tribes were very mercurially enterprising in their own way. Today's enterprise has shifted to a different mode of operation. It's not tribal or intertribal, it is more international. That's a difference, but fundamentally the instinct and the wisdom of enterprise remains the same. Scale has changed, the geographical reach has changed, but fundamentally it's the same. So it's wonderful that you're doing this for your country and for the continent. Africa is very dear to me.
It's interesting that you are. I mean, I love the comment and the way that you discern kind of over time how things have changed, right? And what I hope really is that we as Africans ourselves are able to understand that and are able to bring a different way of doing things into the environment we're operating in today without necessarily losing ourselves. Because I suppose the hard part about discovery of the new is which part of the old feels authentic and which part of the old do you keep. And as you discover the new, what do you let go and what do you unlearn? And I suppose there are no correct answers to that, only the questions.
You should never hold on to the past. You should only stand upon the wisdom of the past. You should not hold on to it because activities of yesterday, what was wisdom yesterday could be foolish today.
Sure.
So we should never hold on to it. I know this has become a fad. Wherever I go, people say, Sadhguru will bring ancient wisdom. I say this is contemporary wisdom, because wisdom should work. Ancient wisdom means it must be chronicled, it must be archived, not practiced. Well, the ancients also might have seen something relevant to their times. Some things of the past could be relevant to us because fundamentally we are still human, we have not evolved into something else, all right? So, we're still human, situations have changed. So, wisdom is a combination of our own realizations and situational practical action put together. Realization may be idealistic, absolute truth, but wisdom is a kind of integration between present-day realities and the ultimate truth. If these two things don't integrate, you can only sit in a cave, be blissful and bless people. If you want to be active in the world, you need to integrate absolute truth with today's reality, otherwise you cannot function in the world.
Sadhguru, can the truth ever be absolute?
Truth is always absolute. Reality keeps changing.
What's the difference?
The difference is you can paint your house whichever color you want today, But the foundation remains the same.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, one of the questions just considering this conversation is one of the questions I was really thinking about. And it's interesting you mentioned this idea of absolute truth. I wonder if the world today is ready for the truth, whatever that truth might be. And I'm not sure that the world is. And the reason I ask that question is because I'm not sure how well each human being is versed in their own truth and how ready they are to receive that truth. There's an old expression that says, the only thing people hate more than the truth is the person who dares to speak it. So,
You're telling the wrong guy. I've faced all of it.
that's where I was going with this. That's where I was going with this. I mean, one of the just at a personal level, one of the things I just watching you from a distance, one of the things I love about how you traverse the space is you have this incredible ability, it appears, to float over the ephemeral, the stuff that's trendy and poppy and next. You just you float over it, but it's seamless. And then when you release a book, the book lands and it captures the zeitgeist, the moment. It's and it immediately goes to #1 bestseller. And one of the things I was wondering, and I wanted to ask you this question as a person who battles with their own truth, by the way, and that's where this question is coming from. It's me musing to myself, because there are truths to myself, about which I'm not sure I'm necessarily willing to confront.
Let me correct that question first, Vusi. The thing is, you said is the world ready for truth? World will never be ready for truth because the word world is not true. Because only the individual experience is true. Only you exist. The world is just a word. That is because you don't have… See, do you call your children the world? No, you call them by name because you have the time and attention for those individual lives. So you call them by name. They are people, all right? They're individual people. When we use the world, we don't have the necessary span of attention nor intention to pay attention to that, so they are just one world, all right? So, world is a psychological manifestation in our minds. Actually, there are only people. People are people because of individual experiences. Are individual experiences truth? No. Individual experiences is psychological realities in which they live, social realities in which they live. So that is not the truth. An individual is capable of experiencing truth, but individual as a person is not truth. The world is not capable of experiencing truth, but it is the truth. Why did I say something so funny?
That answer did not end the way I expected it. So let me then ask this question quite simply. What is the truth? If I am myself trying to confront the truth about myself, what is the truth then?
See, when I said something is absolute, that means you cannot define it, obviously. If you give a definition, it becomes a small piece of something, right? You can define something which has physical boundaries. You cannot define something which has no physicality to it, no boundaries to it. So truth is not something that you try to define and philosophize. Truth is something that you experience. How do you experience truth? The important thing is, if an individual human being, instead of busy making conclusions about everything in the world, if they just sit here, looking at what is it that is making you make the conclusions, what is it that causes joy in you, what is it that causes misery in you, what is it that you like, what is it that you dislike. If you look at these things carefully, you will understand in how many ways you have set up prisms of confusion in your mind. You set up a prism, suppose I hold a prism in my hand and look at you, you will look very funny, you know. You will look somehow distorted. So I hold a prism and I think, Vusi is a funny-looking guy. Well, this is my problem, not yours, isn't it? So like this, we have set up multiple prisms in the vision of our mind, where everything is confusing. And now we are thinking, how to find the truth, how to find the truth. No, you need to clean up your faculties. How you see, how you hear, how you smell, how you taste, how you perceive needs to be cleaned up. Truth is not something that you try to see. You just clear your vision, then you will see.
Where I'm not sure how much you know about my country, South Africa, but we've had a phenomenal time since Nelson Mandela was released from prison 27 years ago. Both highs and lows. I mean, really high highs. We've had people coming together, the spirit of what we as African people call Ubuntu, which is the idea that I am because you are. So whereas in some European cultures, they say, I think, therefore I am. In the African culture, we say, I am because you are. So my definition of self is an expression of your existence. But even in this incredible time, one of the things I've noticed happen over time is because we are a young country, a young demographic, a young population, we're constantly trying to find our identity. And in the quest to find our identity is the battle for whose identity is more true than whose. So what is the archetypal man? What is the archetypal African man? What is the archetypal African Zulu man? What is the archetypal woman? And in the midst of all of this, what we have done is we've created very unrealistic archetypes, and people are trying to live up to an idea that doesn't exist. And this is the question I wanted to ask you. If you dare step outside the ideas that have been created and have become socially acceptable, you become a pariah. I'm talking to the choir here, but you know that once society has created an idea, if you step outside of it, society is going to punish you for it. And of course, there are kind of two responses. The first is, disappear. But the second is to step into yourself and understand who you are and stand in your truth, as I wanted, is the point I was coming to. So the question I have for you is, once you have defined what that truth is, once you're clear on what the world is to you, where do you find the courage to stand in the silence of your own presence? Because you're the only one that's there, really. The minute you step outside of society, it's a very lonely place.
Should I answer the question or should I clear up the question?
Both.
So let me start with the question before I answer. You talked about the European idea of I think, so I am. A simple question, is it because you are, you can think, or because you can think, you are? Which is true? You know the answer.
No.
What do you mean? Because… only because you can exist, you can think, right? Not because you think you can exist. So I'm saying if you are so lost in your own psychological realities that you fancifully start believing that your psychological reality is real, your psychological reality is just your drama, there's nothing concerned with reality there, okay? It is your psychological drama, and you start thinking, right now human suffering is all invested in this, that people think their psychological creations are bigger than the Creator's creation. That is the problem, essentially, that's all they're suffering. That's the only thing human beings are suffering. Their psychological creations are larger and more significant than the cosmos. That's all their problem is. One knock on their head, their psychological reality will evaporate, all right? I'm saying this is not truth, this is just your drama. You've gotten so engrossed and invested in your own drama, you just forgotten that there is a reality called existence. Now about what you said about the African people, you are, so I am. Well, this is a very social reality, this is a way of acknowledging another human being, how we as human beings are not designed in such a way that our individuality is absolute. We have to interact, we have to be together. This is a more peacemaking in the society. This is a more, I would say, social wisdom. Nothing to do with truth per se, it's a social wisdom. You recognize, acknowledge that everybody around you is important, without them you really are nothing. And it is also a way of engaging and involving yourself with other lives, because this is not only to human beings. You may say this to a lion or a giraffe or a tree, saying, because you are, I am. It's a wonderful way of recognizing the contribution of every other life to our lives, but that's a social reality. So having said that about African man trying to create his own image of himself. But see, Africa is a word, it is a geographical piece called a continent today. But in reality, as historical reality, if you look at it, Africa must have been 10,000 tribes or more, I don't know the number, but I'm just saying. Because I discovered in America, there still are 500 nations within United States of America, Native American nations. So in Africa, it must be at least 10,000, I'm just imagining. I do not know the exact number, it could be anywhere, 5,000, 10,000 tribes. So they all lived in their own realities, their own practices, probably their own languages, their own rituals, their own identity, essentially. So today, because certain forces from outside came and whatever the boundaries of tribal identities were just wiped out, it did not happen with war between two tribes. Somebody else came and wiped out and it all got mixed up. Maybe even a Zulu doesn't look like a Zulu anymore, or in the Masai Mara, the tall people, a lot of them are short and fat these days. All this happening. No, that is because I'm saying genetic mixture has happened, which was not happening earlier, social mixture has happened, and all kinds of mixtures and porosity has come. What was guarded as a very sacred identity has gotten mixed up over a period of time. In the last 200 years, so much has happened. Some of it is absolutely painful and disastrous. But this is the way, unfortunately, we have shaped the world, okay? Let's come to that reality. This is the way it's happened. We cannot change yesterday, all right? It is just that today, what we do will determine our future. That we must understand. Yesterday we cannot change. It might have been beautiful, it might have been ugly, it doesn't matter, but we cannot change that. We can only experience today and see and strive how to create a tomorrow. In this effort, if you are a Zulu, it's wonderful. As a culture, you keep that as sacred, you keep that going because it's important, otherwise all of us will become one kind of people. We will die of boredom, okay? It's so wonderful that cultures evolve like this. If you come to India, there are 1,300 languages, even today people speaking these kind of languages. So, all this cultural color, this kaleidoscope of humanity is wonderful. At the same time, we have moved towards a world today where there is technology, there is kind of interconnectivity that you could have never imagined possible even 50 years ago, which you cannot deny, which you cannot grow without using and becoming a part of it. So this need not become a struggle. If you are… I was invited to speak with the Zulu king and to address the Zulu population, but unfortunately, things turned out the way they did with this pandemic. So, see, it's wonderful to keep that memory because a human being's life is rich only because of a vivid sense of memory. If we did not have that memory, our lives would not be rich. So I'm saying keep the culture, I don't think you can keep… let's say if are you a Zulu?
I'm Swati.
Okay.
Very closely related to Zulu.
Okay. So let us say whatever the proud moments of your culture is in your memory, it remains an inspiration. But don't try to practice all of it today because those things were practiced at a certain time, in a certain atmosphere where it was relevant. They were doing what was relevant. If you do the same things now, you will be doing something that's irrelevant. So all those practices of life, we must make it into practices of ceremony. Ceremonially, you must keep them alive. You should not try to keep them alive in your life, in your daily practice. I'm not saying every bit of it, many parts of it. Many large parts of it may not be relevant today. Such things, we must make them into ceremonial practices. Let's say what they were doing every day, once a year we come together and do that just to remind us, ourselves, what roots we come from. This is important to keep the pride and integrity of people to move forward. Otherwise, if somebody looks back and sees there is nothing behind them, there is a vacancy in our memory, then very few people… that is actually a great liberation if there is absolutely past is wiped out. But that is not the way most human beings are made. They will suffer, they will not know how to use it as a springboard. So if you convert what was day-to-day practices of your tribe into a ceremonial practice in your life, it will be like a springboard for you to walk strong into tomorrow.
Got you. So if I'm hearing you, then what you're saying is that even the idea of identity itself is not fixed, that identity is a contemporary construct.
No, it is not… always identities have been there. But what was a tribal identity, today you're trying to make it into a national identity, or now Africa means a continental identity, or we are pushing towards a global identity. Global identity does not mean all of us should paint ourselves white or black. We are different colors, we are different this thing, it's fine. It's essentially that we make these things the color of our life, not the core of our life. This is the important thing. The core of our life is we are human. The core of our life is we are life on this planet, which is the most important thing. The color of our life may be black, white, I am brown, okay?
Technically, we're both brown, but okay. That's good. I wanted to ask you something. I watched one of I thought it was a fascinating episode. You were cycling, you were on a motorbike through the United States, and you stopped at what appeared to be this outback, beautiful Native American town. And you were looking at, it must have been like a hill, and just talking about wisdom. And it touched me because where I'm from, we have a very strong connection to our past. We believe that those who passed before us leave with us a body of wisdom that never ages. And in each community, some of us are selected to access that wisdom, right? We call it, ancestors, and it's a form of spiritual wisdom, really. And what I wanted to understand from you, because I found that episode absolutely fascinating, was what is that bridge between what the old people knew and what the young people are trying to learn? It appears to me as if there is a set of lessons we are yet to go through that those who've been before us have been through. And I mean, you spoke about it. You spoke about it so well in that recording. I thought it was just such a powerful idea. What do you think?
See, in this effort, one important thing is that we don't simply flatly glorify everything that is past and simply put down everything that is present, keeping that in mind. See, for example, if you say anywhere, as you said in Africa, especially in India if you speak, a whole lot of people always believe a few thousand years ago, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, the whole society was so wise and so fantastic and whatever. No, the problem is all the idiots who died and all the wise men, and the wise men also who died at that time, the idiots are forgotten, the wise men are remembered. So you start thinking, 10,000 years ago, everybody was wise.
Sure.
Everybody was not wise. Even then a handful were. Maybe percentages might vary from then to now, I doubt that anyway. Even then a handful of people were wise in a generation, they are remembered, so looks like that generation was a wise generation. Today also it's the same reality, a handful of people may be seeing things the way it is, rest of the people, their wisdom comes from Google, it's not bad, it's informative. I'm saying they might have forgotten their grandfather because the grandfather might not have exhibited too much wisdom. You might have loved him, that's different. He might have been nice to you, that's different. But may not have exhibited too much wisdom. So, not that every grandfather, every forefather was wise and fantastic, no. Even as today is, even then it was. So let's not simply glorify the past and try to simply put down the present, because this is the trend that I am seeing. Where is this generation going? These bloody idiots, what are they doing? No, the bloody idiots are empowered with technology and means. Even then there were bloody idiots. If there was a bloody idiot in your Zulu tribe, all he could do was throw his spear at somebody 1,000 years ago. But today if he's there, oh my God, he will internationally blabber all over the place on the social media, okay?
That's right. That's right. There are a few of those.
Quite a few, believe me. So, I'm saying the impact seems to be more simply because the means is high, Everybody is empowered. So, what I want everybody to remember, I'm right now in the process of nurturing this movement called Conscious Planet. Vusi, you must become a part of this, because what I'm seeing is, see, many great beings have come upon this planet, no question. But when they spoke, hardly 10 people could hear. Just look back and see, Krishna, it's such a glorious, spectacular being. When he speaks, after much waiting, he speaks what? To one man, and that man has hundreds of questions. Shiva, you cannot think of another being like that, wisdom beyond all human capabilities. When he speaks to his beloved wife, she freaks him with thousands of questions. And like let's say Jesus, he tries to speak, all he gets is 12 people and one of them freaks on him anyway, all right? So I'm saying this has been the way of humanity in the past. Great beings have come, but hardly any impact in their times because means were not there. This is the first time in the history of humanity we can sit here. See, I'm sitting in El Paso, you're in Johannesburg, we're talking to each other. When was this possible? So today we can sit here and talk to the entire world. Every human being on the planet, you can address them. Once we have this power, if we do not transform humanity, this simply means that we don't care. So I don't want to go as a generation who does not care. We want to make sure the necessary transformation happens.
How do we do that? I did your inner engineering program. I have to tell you that there were parts where I really battled. There were several moments where I couldn't complete